My name is Oliver. I'm 28, and for best of my life, I've been the airy one in my family. You know, the one bodies balloon to text, the one larboard out of accumulation photos, the one they be think aback they charge a ride or a favor, but never a back it absolutely matters. I grew up with a mom who consistently had an articulate argot and a careful memory. Somehow, she remembered every aberration I made, but forgot every award, every time I helped her. Every altogether agenda I adored up for. I except a sister Ava, who abstruse aboriginal on that arena, absolute got her everything. She smiled, curtsied, got acceptable grades, and got advised like royalty. I was the opposite, quiet, skeptical, too edgeless for my own good. That didn't sit able-bodied with our ancestors' culture. Area smiles were Bill, and accuracy was a nuisance. For years, I approved to acquire my place. I brought pies to dinners I wasn't arrived to. Ability to birthdays area, no one noticed me arriving. An adulation to ancestors who never said my name correctly. I played fourth at first. Cerebration, if I aloof approved adamantine enough, they'd eventually see me. But by the time I hit 25, the blind had lifted. I accomplished my efforts didn't change a thing. My abode at the table was never activity to be permanent. Still, there's a assertive, affectionate, of anguish that doesn't absolutely go away. No bulk, how logically you accept it. So, a back Thanksgiving formed about aftermost year. I debated whether to go. My accessory Maya was the abandoned actuality. In that absolute web of ancestors who absolutely advised me like a Hanel being, she was adolescent by 2 years, but added emotionally complete then bisected the adults in the room. We'd developed afterpiece over the years, deemed as accidental backward, night calls, honest check-ins. So a back she texted me the day afore Thanksgiving saying, "You bigger appearance up, you know, I adored you a spot." I caved. I ample maybe. If abandoned for her, it was account assuming up again. I collectioned the 40 account out to my uncle's abode area. Thanksgiving was consistently hosted. Classic suburbia, manicured lawn, broken down, inflatable turkey in the advanced yard, and that apparent aroma of butter, spices, and astriction wafting out the accessible windows. I anchored in my accepted spot, 3 houses down, because my uncle's driveway was consistently abounding aback. I came late, as I absolved up the advanced accomplished with a canteen of wine I knew no one would touch. I saw them through the awning door. My mom, my aunt, my sister, my uncle, laughing, talking, animated like it was a photo shoot for Abortive Families Anonymous. I didn't apprehend a ray, or a like, a hello. But what happened, a budding, wasn't aloof, cold, it was deliberate, as I accomplished. For the aperture knob, the aperture opened, aloof, a crack. And there was my Uncle Ron bushing the anatomy like an animal roadblock. He didn't accost me, didn't smile. He aloof looked at me with that complacent little beat in his aperture and said, "You're not ancestors anymore, Oliver. You charged to leave." At first, I anticipation he was joking. I absolutely laughed, assured the punchline. But he didn't move. Abaft him, I saw my mom canyon 2 plates beyond the table, one of them with the name agenda I recognized. Mine, she handed it, laughing, to Ava's boyfriend, a guy I'd abandoned met twice. They clinketed glasses. My chair, my bench was abounding of 4, I alike got a bottom in the door. "I'm serious," Uncle Ron added. "You, assuming up aloof, causes tension." I blinked. "Causes tension," I repeated. "I haven't alike absolved in yet." He gave a apish, affectionate shrug. "Let's not accomplish this worse than it needs to be. Aloof arch home." "Okay." I looked over his shoulder, locking eyes with my mom. She didn't flinch. Didn't alarm him off. She aloof, aloft in countenance and took a sip of her wine like she was watching a agilely absorbing TV show. For a moment, I anticipation about affronted back, adopting my voice, authoritative a scene, but I didn't. Instead, I did article that bent to like me off guard. I nodded calmly, quietly. I stepped back. I absolved bottomward, those accomplished with the aforementioned canteen of wine, still in my hand. Got in my car, and collection 2 blocks. Before affairs over, my calmly were shaken, not with rage, but with article colder. Article added final, because I'd apparent all I bawled to see. I wasn't ancestors to them. I was a placeholder, a joke, a dupe, a back. They bawled addition to criticize, and an abandoned armchair, a back they bawled a amplitude filler. But here's the thing, I had article they didn't apperceive about. Months ago, I'd been boring advancing for the moment I chock full trying. Article Maya and I had talked about added then already, over abreast calls and aggregate acceptance of actuality, larboard out, overlooked, dismissed. She wasn't as loud about it, but she saw it, too. The hypocrisy, the favoritism, the abet, that danced below every ancestors gathering. She already told me, if we anytime capital to breach the illusion, all it would booty is one spark. So, I best up my phone, opened the adored message. It had taken me weeks to write, to time it aloof, right? It wasn't a bluster or a answerability cruise or some long asthmatic attack at closure. It was aloof, the accuracy laid bald beatific too. A actual baddest accumulation of bodies in that abode, and I had sent 5 account later. As I sat anchored at the bend of their street, agent idling, I watched through the rear appearance mirror. The advanced aperture opened. First it was Maya, affronted out, face red with anger. Afresh my accessory Daniel, afresh his girlfriend, afresh my aunt's best friend, the one who consistently brought ambrosia and had a bendable atom for me. One by one, they left. I couldn't apprehend the words actuality shouted inside, but I could guess. The apparition was cracking, and that was aloof the beginning. Maya was the aboriginal to call. I saw her name beam beyond my awning, a 4-eye alike pulled out of my spot. I best up, affection pounding, not because I was nervous, but because I hadn't accepted it to break this fast. Oliver, she snapped, not a like cat and mouse for me to speak. What did you aloof do? I paused. You apprehend it. Of course, I apprehend it, so did anybody else. Uncle Ron's face affronted purple. Your mom approved a comedy dumb. And Ava aloof stood there arctic like she didn't apperceive what planet she was on. I could apprehend the wind hasty accomplished her phone. She was walking fast, maybe pacing, maybe on her way to her car. Maya was quiet for a second, and aback she battened again. Her articulation had dropped. Why didn't you acquaint me? You were recording them. That was the thing. A few months back, afterwards, years of actuality, talked bottomward to. Dismissed, an aria about a baffed my back. I'd started accession receipts, not out of paranoia, but because I was annoyed of gaslighting. I'd almanac accidental conversations, save texts, booty screenshots. I had video clips of my mom cogent Ava, she should aloof booty the acclaim for article I'd done. A articulation announcement of Uncle Ron saying, I abandoned showed up to Ancestas contest for handouts. Alike admitting I never already asked for anything. And maybe the affliction of them all, an audio recording from my altogether the year. A fora back, they forgot I existed. Alike admitting I had been sitting appropriate there at the table. That Thanksgiving bulletin I sent, it wasn't aloof, a note. It was a compilation I had stitched.com the greatest hits of ancestors' affectation into a 5-minute clip. It had context, timestamps, and aloof, abundant raw blackout amid the blame to let it all bore in. I beatificate to 7 people. Maya, Daniel, my Aunt Laura, my cousin's fiancé, my mom's sister, who had consistently been on the fence, and to ancestors a company, who'd consistently believed the curated adaptation of the ancestors that my mother and Uncle Ron wash like gospel. I didn't acquaint you because I didn't appetite you bent in the middle, I said quietly. Maya scoffed. I'm already in the middle, but I'm animated you did it. I exhaled, my anchor on the council caster assuredly loosening. Are you okay? I will be. I'm done with them. Click. I sat there in the blackout of my car, staring out the windshield, watching as added cars began affairs abroad from the house. A few bodies stood on the porch, attractive, confused. My mom's articulation rose aloft them all. She was shouting article I couldn't accomplish out, but I didn't charge to apprehend the words. I'd heard versions of them my absolute life. A budding alarm came from Aunt Laura. Oliver, she said breathless. Area, are you? I debated lying bottomward. The street, break there, I'm coming. She abashed up and accurate to her word. 5 account later, she climbed into my commuter seat. Her eyes were wide, but not with anger. Added like addition who had aloof stumbled into abomination arena she wasn't assured to find. I listened to everything. She said twice. I said nothing. I never knew it was that bad. I mean, I knew they were atrocious sometimes. I aloof, didn't apprehend how affected it all was. I looked over at her. You absolutely didn't know. She winced. I saw pieces, but your mom consistently fabricated it, assumed like you were the problem. She said you were dramatic, that you askanced things. I didn't appetite to accept she'd lie. She didn't lie, I said softly. She edited. Aunt Laura stared at the dashboard. This is activity to rip the ancestors apart. Afresh maybe it was already broken, I said. That evening, I went home to a flood of messages, some angry, some apologetic, a few confused. But what stood out the best was the blackout from the bodies who should accept said something. My mom, Ava, and Uncle Ron. Not one of them accomplished out, not a like a call, not a distinct word. Until the abutting morning, that's a back, I saw the post. My mother, in her accepted performative style, had a continued cachet on Facebook about betrayal, misunderstanding, and clandestine affairs. Actuality aired for attention. She never said my name, but the comments fabricated it bright who she was talking about. Bodies, offered sympathy, alleged me disrespectful, said things like, you aloft him bigger than that girl. But article abrupt happened in the thread. Maya commented, so did Daniel, a fresh Aunt Laura. One by one, bodies began blame back. They alleged out the manipulation, the bifold standards, alike administration, their own acceptance of actuality, abject or aria too. The cilia exploded. Some ancestors deleted their comments. A few blocked me outright, but the advance had shifted. For once, I wasn't alone. For once, bodies saw it, too. That weekend, I got a bulletin appeal from Ava's boyfriend. It said, "I didn't apperceive they were like that. I'm sorry. If I'd accepted what I was demography allotment in, I would accept never sat in your chair." I didn't respond. I didn't charge too. The bulletin had already been beatific and not aloof. The one in the accumulation chat, for the aboriginal time in years. I didn't feel like an apparition in my own story. I acquainted like the author. In that story, it wasn't accomplished yet. The Sunday afterwards Thanksgiving, I got a beating at my door. I alive in a quiet allotment of town. Annihilation fancy, aloof a bashful accommodation aloft a bakery that smells like biscuit rolls every morning. It's peaceful, quiet, annihilation. Like the abode I grew up in. Area every aperture, bang acquainted, like a gunshot, and every anniversary. Banquet was a achievement for the neighbors. I wasn't assured visitors. Best of my company had already texted me afterwards the video went around. Some supportive, some shocked. Maya had been calling me daily, but I wasn't able to accessible the aperture and see my dad. We hadn't announced in about a year. He looked earlier than I remembered. Gray bit by bit added into his beard. That accustomed accoutrement anorak a little added worn. He didn't smile, aloof stood there calmly in his pockets, agitation hardly on his heels like he didn't apperceive what to say. "Hi," he assuredly muttered. "Didn't apprehend to see you," I said, dispatch aside, but not absolutely affable him. He hesitated, afresh absolved in any way. I watched him browse the apartment, clean, quiet, abounding with baby things that fabricated me happy. The annal on the shelf, the assemblage of books I absolutely had time to apprehend now. The effect photo of Maya and me from the one Thanksgiving we snuck out and got burgers instead of ambidextrous with the Ancestors Circus. "I saw the video," he said, "or clips of it. Your aunt beatificate to me." I waited. He sat bottomward on the bend of my couch, attractive at the attic like it captivated the answers he didn't apperceive how to ask for. "Your mom, she's been accident. Her apperception over this. Says you set her up. Says you askance everything." I leaned to join the counter. Did I? He didn't acknowledgement appropriate away. Instead, he rubbed the arch of his adenoids like he was aggravating to columnist the astriction out through his skin. "I don't know, Oliver. I mean, I knew things were bad amid you too, but audition it like that. It was adamantine to accept too. I bankrupt my arms. Adamantine for who?" He looked up for me. "Because it fabricated me apprehend. I let it appear for years. And there it was. The aboriginal absolute book my ancestor had any time said that acquainted like a mirror instead of a dismissal. I didn't say anything. I didn't assurance myself to allege yet." He confused on the couch. "You bethinka back you were 13 and your mom threw out your art portfolio." I nodded slowly. That day had backward with me. Months of assignment tossed into the debris because I'd got an AB in science. "Yeah, she told me you'd fatigued article disrespectful." I drew a panimation of her babble at me. That was it. He let out a dry laugh. I believed her. Never alike asked to see it. "That was the pattern," I said, and I was abashed at how abiding my articulation was. She'd say something, you'd nod. Ava would comedy along, and I'd be larboard aggravating to bulk out if I was crazy or aloof, not account the truth. He looked like he capitaled to argue, but he didn't. Instead, he sat there, comatose slightly, absolution, the blackout stretch. "I can't fix what happened," he said eventually, "but I capital you to know. I see it now. I ambition I'd said article, sooner. I ambition I'd stepped in." I believed he meant it. I absolutely did. But allotment of me additionally knew that his affliction didn't disengage years of complicity. He hadn't been cruel, but he'd been silent. And sometimes blackout is aloof, allotted affectionate of wound. "I acknowledge you adage, that," I said, "but I don't apperceive what you appetite for me." He exhaled. "I don't apperceive either. I aloof, I assumption I capital to see how you're doing." "I'm accomplishing better," I said truthfully. "Now that I'm out of it, now that I've chockfull assuming they'll change." He nodded again. "They're planning accident control. Of advance they are, they anticipate, if they aloof, delay it out. Bodhi, we'll move on." I aloft an eyebrow. "And will they?" He looked tired. "Some already have. Some are abashed to Ace's sides, but a few. They're furious, abnormally with what you said about the money." "Oh, that part. See, what I hadn't mentioned to anyone al fresco, that aboriginal bulletin was the money trail. I had been giving quiet banking abutment to several ancestors' associates. For years, rent, car repairs. Alike, a baby accommodation to Ava already aback. She said her admirer was calumniating and she bawled to leave. I never asked for it back. Never told anyone. I did it because I anticipation, maybe, aloof, maybe, it would acquire me a abode in the ancestors again. That chock-full 3 months ago. I didn't accomplish a arena about it. I aloof started redirecting. My advice against Maya, against friends, against bodies who absolutely advised me like a person. The video, I beatific out, included a agenda at the end. This is why I chock full advantageous for your lives. Apparently, that stung at it than the audio clips. Their adage, you're backbreaking them, my dad said. They punish themselves, I replied. I aloof, chock full, advantageous. It didn't argue. Afterwards a while, he stood. I should go. I aloof capital you to apperceive you were appropriate about all of it. He started against the door, afresh paused. If there's any time, a way back for us, I achievement, you'll let me booty it. And afresh he left. I didn't cry. I didn't. Rage X. I aloof stood there in the quiet, apprehensive how continued it would booty for the abutting beachcomber to hit because I knew the ancestors wasn't done yet. My mom didn't let go of ability that is Billy. Ava never handled a basement well, and Thanksgiving ability except been the spark, but Christmas was about the corner, and if they anticipation they could pretend annihilation had changed, they were about to be reminded. I hadn't alike started yet. By the time December formed around, the blackout was deafening. The accumulation babble for ancestors' Christmas, affairs that usually lit up with buffet assignments and recycled memes from our Aunt Margie, was almighty quiet. The aftermost bulletin in there was Ma's. Let me apperceive aback you all are accessible to booty some accountability. No one responded. No haha reactions, no base remarks, aloof, a exhaustion of answerability, assuming to be peace. I wasn't invited, of course. Not that I bawled the invite. For the aboriginal time in years, I didn't feel like I was missing something. I didn't charge to force a smile through Edition banquet area. Ava's career was acclaimed like a Nobel Prize, and abundance was ignored. I didn't charge to accept to my mom be Matt jokes about me, or apprehend Uncle Ron say things like, over's consistently been sensitive, like I was some adulterated appliance. I was chargeless now. Chargeless from obligation, from expectation, from the abundant weight of actuality, the family's affecting punching bag. But I wasn't done. Not yet. See, the recording I beatific out at Thanksgiving was aloof the beginning. It had annoyed their image, affected conversations they didn't appetite to have, but it hadn't absolutely affected them to change. They were ambuscade now, beating their wounds, cat and mouse for the ball to pass. I could feel it, that smug, alive acceptance that eventually I'd acclimatize from anamnesis and they'd accost the narrative. So, I fabricated a biting, they couldn't. I started with the money, quietly, methodically, and afterwards warning, I allege in the favors. That $3,000 accommodation to Ava. I beatific her, a academic letter. Through my advocate, reminding her that while I had originally advised it as a gift, the contempo adumbration of her lies about artifice and calumniating accord voided that understanding. She was still with the guy. By the way, he showed up to Thanksgiving in my seat, bedlam with my mom. I gave her 60 canicule to repay. No threats, no interest, aloof, a cardboard trail. I canceled the alternating coffer alteration that had been accoutrement allotment of Uncle Ron's acreage tax. He never asked for advice directly. He was too appreciative for that. But a few years ago, he hinted at boxy times, and I stepped in. Every November, like clockwork, I'd accelerate the bulk due. Not this year. On December 3rd, his coffer beneath the acquittal request. My mom, though she was the better one. For 5 years, I'd been accoutrement the charter on her car. She never thanked me, not once. It was expected. She fabricated it bright that as her son, it was my duty. I let it accelerate for too long. She didn't apperceive the car was still in my name. On December 10th, I repossessed it. The buzz calls came in like fireworks. First, Ava, acute and furious. Then, Uncle Ron, aggravating to acumen with me, like I was some affronted child. And finally, my mother. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. She aloof alleged and said, so, this is who you absolutely are. And I replied, no, this is who you fabricated me become. Click. Christmas Eve came. I didn't sit alone. I spent it with Maya and a few of our alternate friends. We fabricated banquet.com in her apartment, lit candles, played laugh games, and exchanged ability that didn't charge to affect anyone. It was the warmest anniversary I'd had in years. About midnight, Maya caked us anniversary a bottle of wine and sat beside me on the floor, affairs a absolute over our legs. They allege me, she said softly. Let me guess. I said, accident control. She nodded. Your mom said I was allotment sides. That I was disturbing the ancestors apart. You are, I said. The allotment that bawled to be burst down. She leaned her arch on my shoulder. She additionally said, article else. That she was activity to set the almanac straight. I sighed. Of advance she is. The abutting morning, I begin out what she meant. My mom wrote a continued column on Facebook. Addition performance. Addition attack, to cast a script. She talked about how families go through adamantine times, how sometimes clandestine affliction, it becomes accessible, and how some associates are calmly manipulated by apocryphal narratives. It was a masterclass in able denial. No names, no specifics, aloof abundant ambiguity. To draw a cord from Bodhi's who abandoned knew the adaptation of her she'd curated for years. I didn't respond. I didn't comment. I didn't charge to because, by afresh, the accuracy was already overextension on its own. Aunt Laura acquainted her own status. Short but pointed. Sometimes the abandoned way to fix a burst ancestors is to stop assuming it's not broken. Appreciative of you, Oliver. Daniel acquaint, a screenshot of one of the texts my mom had beatific him years ago badmouthing me appropriate. Afterwards, I helped him pay for Academy books. The explanation was simple. We all saw it. We aloofed in an appetite to accept it. Added people, cousins, old ancestors, friends, alike one of Ava's Academy roommates, began commenting, messaging, extensive out, bodies I hadn't announced to in years, were apologizing. Cogent me, they'd noticed things, but didn't apperceive how abysmal it went. It was like appropriation the lid off a burden cooker. Anybody had stories. Anybody had scars. And now they weren't. Abashed, to allotment them. A man of virtue. Afterwards Christmas. I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, from my mom. It wasn't an apology. It was a warning. She said I was antibacterial, the family's reputation. That I was authoritative enemies I couldn't afford. That there were after effects to awkward bodies in public. It apprehends like the final act of addition who had absent ascendancy and didn't apperceive how abroad to barb it back. I bankrupt the letter already and abandoned it in the trash. I didn't charge to action her anymore. The accuracy was acceptable on its own. By the time New Year's Eve formed around, the ancestors had breached into two camps. There were the ones who clung to the old ways, arresting my mom. Assuming the recordings were taken out of context, absolution every alarm out is drama. And afresh there were the ones who assuredly opened their eyes. They started acclamation their own gatherings. Maya hosted a brunch in January and arrived anybody she trusted. Over 20 bodies showed up. Uncle Ron wasn't one of them. Neither was Ava. Neither was my mother. I've had to anguish in a way, not aloof the accident of the ancestors I never absolutely had, but the adaptation of me that kept Catan Mouse for their adulation to appear captivated in approval. I let that adaptation die. Buried him with the guilt, the bodies pleasing, the amaranthine anguish for validation. Now I'm living. I started autograph again. Article I hadn't done a back aerial school. I launched a baby freelance business. Maya and I are after peace than ever, and every so often, addition, alcove out. Addition, who saw what happened, who, accustomed, their own ancestors in my story, who says, thank you for adage, something I acquainted this way for years. So, if you account this, in cerebration about the ancestors associates who appish you, who use your adulation like a leash, who abandon alarma back, they charge something, except to me. You don't accept to break in that abode, aloof, because your name is on the mailbox. You don't owe anyone your blackout to accumulate the accord they never gave you. Sometimes the bravest affair you can do is angle at the advanced aperture, they airtight in your face, about face, around, and never attending back. I didn't lose a family, I afford one. And in the quiet that followed, I assuredly heard my own articulation again, clear, unapologetic.